Hello, my name is Chris Guadagno, and this is Dan Diandria, and I'm here doing a video recording for medical aspects of disability, and the instructor is Dr. Dan Smith, and Dan has instructed us in the class syllabus to do what they call a resident expert. No, I'm sorry. It's a day in the life, and there's 8 questions that we were asked to. I believe it was 8 questions. No, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 questions regarding Dan's life and his experiences. So I'm going to start off by saying that this is a short video, and we're going to briefly mention the things that we can, and that there's no way for us to tell a whole life story. There's a lot more to it than this. This is just to give you a brief understanding of what Dan's gone through and answering all these questions for the class. Okay, Dan, I got these questions for you here. And the first question is what is the chronic illness or disability that you are dealing with?
I have a spinal cord injury. I'm a wheelchair user because of my injury. My injury's at C5.
Okay, can you explain what C5 is?
That's where it is in your neck. It's up high in my neck. So I'm basically paralyzed from the chest down.
Okay. Okay, the next question here is, how does the chronic illness or disability affect your life?
You know, it's challenging. There's a lot of barriers in the world to try and get around in the wheelchair. You know, I have to look everywhere I go to make sure I don't hit a hole, or there's a bump there. I can't get over the curb or the steps, or the doorway's wide enough to get into. You know, just all kinds. You know, just a simple thing of going to the bathroom. You know, so there's a lot to it.
So going to the bathroom at home and going to the bathroom when you're out, like say,
yeah, if it's not, yeah, if it's an older building or whatever, or, you know, they're not up to code, it becomes an issue.
And how many different? I mean, is there restaurants that have this obstacle? I mean, is it just mostly different office bill? I mean, it involves everything, or no?
It depends. A lot of it, I noticed, depends on the area. Like, you know, the city of Buffalo's tough. A lot of the smaller communities, small towns, they're not up to code. You know, the bigger towns, Amherst, Cheektowaga, stuff like that. You know, the newer buildings are pretty good.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
What about like recreation, like parks and stuff like that? Can you talk about stuff?
Oh, the parks are very not disabled friendly. I can't even go to the park. Basically, I'm a prisoner from going to a town park. It's very frustrating.
Are there people working on trying to improve stuff like this?
Oh yeah, we're working on it. I try to work on it. You know, I mean, all you can do is just call your town, or whatever town you live in, write your board members a letter saying that why can't the disabled community use the parks like everybody else? And it's all about awareness, education and awareness, because most people don't realize it's an issue.
And can you tell, like, give an example about a restriction that you would have in the park?
How am I gonna? I can't.
Like fishing?
Yeah, I can't move around. They don't have, you know, paved trails, or I can't wheel through the grass, especially if it's a little wet. You know, so can't. You know, a lot of the bathrooms in the parks are not up to code. Can't get in them. So, just
there's a lot of limitations.
Yes, very.
A lot of limitations. What about limitations when you perform your daily activity, like getting in the car or cutting the lawn, or stuff like that? How do you cope with those things?
It's challenging. It's a lot of hard work. You know, you got to put a lot of effort into it. You know, they have adaptive driving controls for your vehicle and stuff. You still have to put the work into it to get in and out of it. Unless you have a wheelchair van with the ramp, that makes it a little easier. You know, so if you want to get around and move around a little bit, it can be done. There's adaptive equipment for it, but once again, it's still challenging.
And I imagine there's some people that can't, don't have the funds, or some people are limited because of money.
That, and also their injury. You know, they might not be able to use their arms or whatever, and, you know, so they can't drive, and then they got to rely on public transportation, which is another major issue for the disabled community. They're very, very, I mean, they have some stuff, but it needs to be a lot more efficient than what it is. You know, they pick you up and they drop you off somewhere, and then they'll say, if you're only going to be there for half an hour, they'll tell you, well, I can't come back for 2 hours. So now you got to sit around there, and, you know, you run into, you know, the individual person could have skin ulcers or whatever. Now they're sitting around, and it's just a snowball effect. It makes it worse. Public transportation is an issue. It needs to be addressed for people with disabilities.
Okay, so that's just a brief, there's many other things, but those are the things that we came up with. I'm sure that there's other things that tomorrow you may encounter that we didn't mention today, so this is just the top, you know.
Yeah, just going through it. We're trying to give you an idea of what's going on.
Okay. So the next question is, what challenges do you face? Which we also answered that question, I think. What strategies have you developed to cope? Is there any strategies?
Yeah, I did come up with a strategy that before I was injured, I was the type of the guy I was always on the go. You know, I would pull into the store to get a cup of coffee. You know, I had the door open and I was halfway out of the truck before I had it in drive or park. You know, and I was always like that. Got to get going. Got to move. Got to move. That was my biggest challenge, was that being in a chair, everything slows down. Just take it easy. You got to slow down. You know, like an eternal clock. I just had to slow everything down. Just be patient, and, you know, and let it come. You know, and just move slowly, and, you know, and that's all you can do. I mean, I cannot move and do the things like I used to, and, you know, you just got to accept it, find a way to cope with it, which was, you know, slow down a little bit, and that's what we did. You know, a little bit of spirituality goes a long way there too, also. That, you know, that helps a lot.
So these are like combat type behaviors that you use
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just coming to terms with your injury and accepting it.
And that's a big thing.
It's very big, and, you know, everybody's gonna handle that in a different way.
Have you come to a point where you did? How was that a long process, or have you come to that terms now, or was that a long process? How long did it take you to really accept what's happened?
Well, I did the therapy, you know, and I just kept doing the therapy and doing the therapy and doing the therapy for 2 years. And finally, I just realized that, you know, I'm not going to be able to walk again. I tried. I gave it everything I had. The spinal cord injury, you know, it is what it is. And I had to, at that point, I just said, you know, I mean, time to start living life. You know.
Okay. Let's see what the next question is here. Okay. Okay, this is interesting. We touched on this. You know, what modifications and/or accommodations have you adopted? I'd like, such as
the hand controls in the vehicle.
Yes, an elevator.
Yeah, elevator.
You have a
wheelchair ramp.
A wheelchair ramp that
I have a tractor that I drive that we put a apparatus on that I can use the controls to drive it.
So you don't have to. These things are made so he can't use his feet. So these things are.
Yeah, we put a hand control on it for the forward and the backwards. Yeah, so.
Okay. Are these things made, or did you have to make them yourself? Are there things that you had to come up with because the world didn't have it?
Absolutely.
So there's a good example right there of
Absolutely. We actually, my friends got a fishing boat, and we made. I got lucky enough to find an old beat-up wheelchair, and took the wheelchair all apart. Took some of the apparatus from the chair in the boat and put it on the wheelchair, and now we got a chair that goes in the boat that's like a wheelchair that I can move around on there. I got a patent. I'm trying to get a patent on it, so don't get any ideas either.
So this is a good example of how the world does not provide things, and that you have to figure something out that no one, you know, basically, you know, had the ability to do. So
Well,
you had
it's, you know, we're a minority.
so there's another
not a lot
good
of
thing.
us out there, so you know, there's not a lot of emphasis put on, or we don't have a lot of buying power. So
That's an interesting point right there. That's an interesting point. So the world is not tailored to accommodate you
it's all
because
about
of
the
money.
It's all about the votes and the money.
That's an interesting.
That's just my opinion.
No, those are interesting facts there that affect you. You know, so that's really good. Let me see what the other questions are here. Okay, this question says, do you use a form of assisted technology? If so, what and how, and what is the impact?
Assistant technology, I don't like. I use a wheelchair.
Okay.
I have a standing machine that I use that stands me up. The impact on that is that, you know, it helps your bowels, so you can go to the bathroom and, you know, stretches you out and stuff. Other than, you know, the adaptive driving equipment, the adaptive vans, stuff like that for driving. That's about all I really use. You know, I still can use my arms and stuff, so I don't need quite as much stuff, adaptive equipment, as per se somebody that, you know, they use their wheelchair and they got like they can drive it with their head, then they got a computer they can use and then it'll talk for them and stuff like that. There's stuff out there that, but for me, I don't.
Those two things.
Yeah, I don't utilize a lot, you know.
But they were helpful. Did they make a difference?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, without the wheelchair, I wouldn't be able to get around. What would I do?
No, that's right.
Yeah,
That's
so.
right. That must have been a struggle trying to use the wheelchair the right way so you could.
Yeah, well, yeah, that took a long time too.
Did you modify a wheelchair that you had because it wasn't?
Yeah,
quite...
I was working on one. We're fixing it up a little bit, trying to make it a little better.
Well, that's interesting. Those are interesting things. Okay, let's move on. Okay. All right, this is an interesting question here. It says, which areas of the medical community have you been involved with because of your chronic illness or disability? In your case, disability.
Well, I've been involved with quite a bit of the community, where the medical part of it. You know, I was in the hospital for a while. Started off in ECMC. They sucked.
Why?
Well, you know, while I was there, I started getting a skin ulcer while I was there. You know, their therapy was a joke.
The skin ulcer, can you...
They don't turn you. You know, they're supposed to be, when you're first injured, they're supposed to turn you every 3 hours.
Okay.
They weren't doing that.
So you can't turn around.
No, in bed, I couldn't barely move. I was, you know, pretty bad shape for a while.
Nurses were busy and they couldn't come in all the time.
They're supposed to do their job. That's not, that's an excuse.
Do you think they were low on staff, or do you think that...
My biggest, they don't know.
They don't know. That's interesting.
The biggest
Nurses.
thing here with the whole thing is, I can say, with the disabled community and the rehabilitation, especially more so in this area of Western New York, is the lack of awareness and education. Not only for the medical community, but also us. You, me, my neighbor.
So the people that are actually involved in trying to help you don't understand
Right, exactly.
what you're going through, even the nurses at the hospital.
Well, they don't know the protocol. They think they do, but
Because they don't feel it. So
well,
if
they
they're
don't
not...
know they don't know what to do. But luckily, by the grace of God, I was able to go to Craig Hospital in Colorado, which specializes in spinal cord injury and traumatic brain injury. That's all they do. And when I got there, I learned how to be. I was properly rehabilitated, properly educated, and here we are today. I live a productive life, not because of ECMC, because of Craig Hospital.
Craig's Hospital. So there's not every hospital accommodates you the same, and you only found one.
Yeah, there's a couple. I mean, there's, Shepherd's in Atlanta, and I think Cleveland Clinic's got something going.
But they're rare.
There's not a lot of them. There's not a lot, and my involvement with those rehabilitation counselors in Colorado was definitely a positive thing. Learned a lot from it. I mean, just the wheelchair aspect of it alone, I went to a class for 2 weeks, and they had 100 different wheelchairs there. And they taught us all about the wheelchair, what the different tires are, the casters, different style, aluminum, metal, titanium, the dump, the ergonomical frame, the regular frame, different size tires, rims, hand things, the camber on the tires, everything.
So a lot of those things were for necessity or
So
interest?
because the issue is when you go to buy a wheelchair, right, you go back to your hometown, now you want to buy a wheelchair, right? So now you go to ECMC because that's who does the evaluation, that don't know really what they're talking about. So now I'm going there, right? A regular guy doesn't know nothing. They go there, he gets the wrong chair, and then he gets a skin ulcer because he's sitting on the wrong cushion.
Oh, boy.
Okay? So, but that doesn't happen to me because I was properly trained and educated and rehabilitated. So I know what I need. So I advocate for myself to make sure I get what I need so that I don't suffer any more than I have to. But the average person
Doesn't understand.
or the average person that gets disabled and didn't have the fortune, the lucky ability to end up in Colorado, into that hospital, ends up getting shafted because he don't know and the people that are trying to take care of him don't know.
So I guess an interesting question to ask you, and I think there's a couple of federal agencies that require hiring people with disabilities to serve people with disabilities. So in other words, if you were taking care of the people in the hospital, it would be on your mind that they're suffering and that you would know what they would need.
I do. I try. I call down the ECMC and yell at the social worker on occasion. There are some individual people that are in the hospital now that I have a really close eye on, that I want to get them out of there and get them to Craig Hospital, but I just can't seem to get it done, and they're suffering in there, and they're not being properly cared for. And I mean, I don't know what else I can do. I mean, I try to do what I can. Obviously, I don't have the resources to really do what I want to do. All I can do is just, try and hang on and keep them alive as long as we can, and hopefully maybe they'll get out of there into some place where they can be rehabilitated and live a productive life.
So that's interesting. I wanted to ask you, just briefly, in your opinion, do you think there's anything political involved in treatment with hospitals, and do you think that it's lack of resources, or?
What I believe it is, the biggest thing, what I believe, is a lack of awareness and properly educated. I just firmly believe that most of the people, the nurses that are working there, just don't know. Now, for the other part of it, money or politically, I don't know. I have no clue. All I know is that if they were properly trained and they had an option to do the right thing for that human being, I like to have enough faith in my brothers and sisters in this world that they would do the right thing. So I believe that they just need to be educated.
That's interesting because these questions here, are an attempt by Dr. David Smith to show other people what's going on. So I think that's interesting. It's really interesting. All right, we'll move on. Okay. Okay. The next question says, what are your thoughts or feelings on the medical community? How do you feel? How do you feel your community here and the resources that you have around the medical community to support, with anything that involves your injury? How do you feel about all that, like your doctor and, for example, whatever your medical, whether you have rehabilitation or any kind of services that you get from the medical community. How do you feel about that? What are your feelings?
My feelings about the medical community in our area is, the people I'm dealing with, I'm pretty happy with them, you know. I did do some therapy at ECMC early in my recovery, and they did it, after I got back from Colorado. They did it, as best as job as they could. I go to the doctors and stuff like that. I mean, they're good, pretty good, you know.
Do they ever offer to come and get you, pick you up, and bring you to their clinics, or is it all?
No, you got to get there yourself. If you don't drive, then you got to rely on that public transportation, which is that's a big issue.
So the insurance company, I think the insurance company would be a part of. You would think that the insurance company would be a big part of the medical community. What are your feelings about what? I guess we should direct that question.
Well, the insurance company is basically what I tell everybody is what there is. The insurance companies, they dictate what care you get, not what care you need.
This is the medical community.
Well, I mean, if you don't, it goes back to the education. If the patient you're dealing with is not educated or doesn't know how to advocate for themselves, or worse, does not have the ability to advocate for themselves, like they can't talk, they don't have speech, it becomes a really big problem. And unfortunately, people that can't use their arms or that are worse off than we are get abused a lot too. That's another major issue with in-home care, with abusing like quadriplegics and people that can't talk or defend themselves. We have issues. It's a problem. Elderly too. Elderly people as well.
Hey, interesting. We talked about now the insurance companies dictate what care you get. Do you think that there's any relationship to the company or the hospitals or the healthcare community? Do you think they're dictated? Do you think there's ethical issues involved with the healthcare system and how they deal with the insurance companies and what they do based on what the insurance companies do?
Well, at that point, it's all speculation. I have an opinion, and I'm not sure if it's the right opinion or the wrong opinion. I don't really. I know if you don't advocate for yourself and let them give you what they're going to give you, you're in pretty rough shape. Speaking with, you have a disability, you're going to a doctor that may not really know what he should know, doesn't know what kind of cushion you should have or what kind of wheelchair you should have. I'm not saying he's a bad guy or a good guy. Sometimes it's up to the patient, to say, hey, look, or, the patient called the insurance company and say, look, this is really what I need.
So you've seen them limit your services, but did you ever see them give you more than the services that they were paid to do? Have you ever seen them?
That depends on the individual person.
Okay, so that depends on which therapist or
as
doctor.
far as durable medical supplies, wheelchair, catheters, stuff like that, no, they always want to give you less. Now, if you're going to physical therapy, the physical therapist, you might, most likely, like I said, I have faith in my brothers and sisters in this world, they'll go the extra mile for you, what they can do for you. It's nothing to do with the amount of money they're getting paid or how much or how little they're supposed to give you. It's just one on you and them, and they want to see you succeed. So people are good-hearted, yeah, I think,
Okay, that's fair. That's okay. Moving on here. Okay, what level of control, if any, do you feel they have over their condition? Okay, let me.
What do I have over what do I feel like I have on my medical condition? I have all the control over my condition.
Okay, so you think that you have all the control over.
I'm the one that keeps myself healthy. I'm the one that makes sure I'm not over catheterized. I'm the one that makes sure I'm not drinking too much fluid. I'm the one that makes sure I have a valve program that I follow. I'm the one that makes sure that I'm eating right. I'm doing everything right to get as much longevity out of this whole situation as I can. So I do have quite a bit of control over what's going on with me.
Okay.
Only because I was properly rehabilitated.
So in other words, there's no one else to look over all the details that are necessary but you.
yes, it falls on the individual, you know, and if they're not properly rehabilitated and they don't know what to do, then it becomes, you know, worse. Instead of getting better, you go backwards. You know, because they don't know, the people that are taking care of them don't know how to take care of them, and it just snowballs into a
Back
bad
to the
situation.
education thing.
Yes, it's all about awareness and education. That's what it's about, man.
It makes a lot of sense, Dan. Okay, moving on. Okay, this is an interesting question here. Have you ever worked with a rehabilitation counselor? If so, how has that impacted your life? If not, why not? So,
I've worked with quite a few rehabilitation counselors. I worked with OTA, physical, several different ones. You know, I started out in Colorado with the physical and OTA therapies, with the, you know, the hands and the trying to learn how to transfer in and out of the chairs, you know, how to go to the bathroom, how, you know, you start a bowel program.
was that helpful? But was it accurate? I mean, do you think it was accurate? What everything was accurate?
When I was
Did
in
it help you?
Colorado, in Craig Hospital,
Yes. Whatever.
I wouldn't be here. Yeah, I wouldn't. I was my rehabilitation was. I mean, all you got, the proof is in the pudding. Here I am, you know what I mean? I live a productive life. I was properly rehabilitated at Craig Hospital.
So their experience
Yes.
helped
Yes.
in their education.
Yeah,
That's
well,
interesting.
yeah.
Was there any disabled people that you knew of that were there, you know, assisting you?
There was quite a few disabled people there. There were people then that came in there, you know, just kind of see, you know, that, hey, look, I was like you, and, you know, I get in and out of my car, and the people that were working there had disabilities, and yeah, there was quite a few around.
So you would agree then that someone who understands your disability, who has gone through it, is a more accurate counselor than one who has no idea of.
What I agree with is that a person that has a new injury going into a rehabilitation hospital, and he goes in there, or he or she goes in there, and he's dealing with a person, he or she, that has a disability, and sees what they're doing and how they're living their lives and how they've come so far. It makes it easier to see, like, there's hope at the end. Instead of going someplace and you're the only guy there with a disability, you don't know what the expectations are. When you go someplace and there's other people that were where you were and you see where they are now, it gives you something to shoot at, like a parameter, you know.
Goal. Good goal.
Or whatever, you know, that you can live a productive life. So by
So there's
intermingling,
hope.
yeah, exactly. You intermingle with other people with disabilities and stuff, you can see that, you know, you know, it's not as
See the light. It's not
Yeah.
as bad maybe as
yeah,
it seems.
You know, you can live, you know.
That's great. That's great. And this last question we have here is, I thought was really interesting. Okay, I think you may think this is interesting too. What is your advice? Like, I mean, if you had a rehabilitation counselor, okay, and there was anything that, any advice that you can give them, you know, in order to be a better therapist, what would you, and take your time, you know, answer it the way you want to answer it. You know, if it was a good therapist, what makes a good therapist to you? What makes a good therapist?
What type of therapist? A physical rehabilitation, an OTA, or a psychologist? What are you talking
Okay,
about?
our degree covers your area. So, and I guess my question is in relationship to your injury. You know, like whatever therapist I know you've mentioned that you had a couple of different therapists. You know, if you had if you can give them advice, you know, on, you know, maybe you've had therapists that assume things on you, you know, and maybe they incorrectly assumed something because they didn't understand it, or, you know, anything that you could do to give them advice to be.
My biggest thing would probably say, just in general, would be First of all, the number one thing is that the rehabilitation has a lot to do with the patient, the attitude of the patient, and what they want to get done.
That's interesting.
And then the number two thing I would say that to the actual person trying to rehabilitate the person is that you got to try and be patient. Put yourself in this individual situation. It's like for me, for instance, I was running around and working and living a normal life, and now I got bashed down and I can't walk. It's a tough pill to swallow. So you just got to be patient and start out slow, and then I believe in my heart the amount of rehabilitation that you're going to be able to give to the individual patient or person has a lot to do with their attitude. You only can work with what you got.
So it goes both ways.
That's most definitely a two-way street.
That's interesting.
No
right
question.
There. That's interesting.
There is no question. It's a two-way street.
And we have talked about that in class too, about the temperament and cooperation of the patient.
Yes.
So there's another challenge.
Well, I mean, if you get a patient that's willing to cooperate,
makes it easier.
Well, no, you got to take advantage of that. You got to give them everything you got. So and just be happy. That you got lucky and you got a good guy.
So it makes their job easier.
I wouldn't say it doesn't make it easier. It may be more fulfilling.
Fulfilling. That's a good. That's a real good way to say it.
But if you get a tough cookie that doesn't want to cooperate, you gotta be patient. Just work a little bit at a time, and then they'll start making progress, and hopefully they'll start getting a little happy, and they'll open up a little bit, and then you'll be able to get it done. You just gotta.
And there could be a dual disability there with someone who's not cooperating, so that would be another challenge, right, for the counselor.
Hey, I mean, so not everybody's going to be able to be rehabilitated. It's not everybody can run a 40-yard dash. I mean, it is what it is. Not everybody's created equal.
Okay. I guess that there's just I wanted to ask a question. Has your dreams changed, like when you were a kid, compared to now? I mean, your big dream.
My dream now is inclusion in a barrier-free world. That's what my dream is.
That's interesting. So would you say that your disability was valuable to you in any way?
No.
As far as how about what spiritually, or have you have you taken? You mentioned spiritual earlier, so I guess my question is, in a spiritual way to look at it, as you said before, how would you look at your whole situation as a spiritual experience?
Well, I mean, God works in mysterious ways. I'm right where He wants me to be. I don't know why, but I am. And I gotta work with what I got. That's all we can do.
Okay, that's good. So, would you say that everything works out for good?
I hope so. All we can do is just keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully that more people will become aware of the obstacles for people with disabilities, and it'll become more, like I said, a barrier-free world.
Okay, well, I guess that's our goal for being rehabilitation counselors, is that we're going to learn from you, and your the answering of all the questions that you had today is going to help, hopefully help the class get a better understanding of what it's like to be disabled, and what it's like to care for people who are disabled in a spinal cord injury. Of course, we couldn't go over everything, and so I just wanted to mention one thing. There's a book here. It's called One Door at a Time. Dan's wife wrote it, and it gets in much more detail about this situation if anyone is interested. This book is available through Barnes & Noble bookstore. It could be ordered, and what was that, Amazon.com, it could be ordered. again, it's one door at a time. And Dan, I really appreciate your meeting here, and I think it'll make a big difference for the class.
I hope so. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dan.